Selected 1. For you, heaven stops. Everything around you flows like a swift river. However, the flow is now stagnant. In order to hear what heaven has to say about you, time itself bends. Every conflict you believed to be your downfall was really a lesson from God. The final mark has now been added by the instructor next to your name. The past, what you could accomplish for God, was never the point of this. The focus was always on the person you would become as a result of the fire. The purpose of the exams you underwent was to uncover your inner treasure, not your weaknesses. When others sat down, you continued to stroll. When the stillness seemed to go on forever, you said, "I still trust you." That whisper was more loud than 1,000 trumpets in heaven. Chapter 1, verse 7 of the first epistle of Peter proclaims the word of God. These hardships will demonstrate the sincerity of your beliefs. As gold is purified by fire, it is being tested. Gold is not nearly as valuable as your faith. The gold that has been purified by the fires of disappointment and delay is you. There was a furnace in every season of turmoil, a purifying fire for each unanswered prayer. But rather from fading, you became more radiant. You weren't being punished by God. He was constructing a version of you that could bear his splendor without arrogance, cleansing you. Allow me to introduce you to Elon, a guy who embodies this essence. For years, he begged for doors to open, but all he heard was stillness. His pals made fun of him. His relatives didn't believe him. However, he raised his hands each morning and said, "Still, I choose you, Lord." One day, a door opened that no one could close, but the opportunity itself was the real miracle. It was that while he waited, Eli's heart remained pure. Success was never his test. Sincerity was at issue. You have experienced this story as well. Your altar was the waiting area, your refining fire over the long evenings. God transformed you, even if you asked him to alter your circumstances. The miracle was that. Consider a seed that is hidden in the shadows. Soil pushes in. The weight seems unjust, but something holy occurs underneath it. The seed splits open. Its shattering does not mean its demise. It's change. That seed was you. What seemed to be loss was really growth. Heaven is now in view. Your crown is being prepared by the same angels that saw your sorrow. The Father looks upon your endurance and says, this heart pleases me. 1. You have not been forgotten. You have been observed. Every act of kindness when no one saw. Every moment you resisted bitterness. Heaven recorded them all. Look around. You might still see ashes, but the fragrance rising from them is worship. You might feel bruised, but bruised hearts release the sweetest oil. That's why heaven is impressed not by perfection, but perseverance. The time of testing was never meant to destroy you. It revealed what was already inside: faith, endurance, loyalty. You may have stumbled, but you never walked away. And that to God is victory. Chosen one, listen closely. You didn't lose time. You were being trained. You didn't waste years. You were building roots. God hid you because he was shaping something in you that applause could have ruined. So now as you stand on the edge of a new chapter, feel the shift in the air. The storm has passed, but the strength remains. Heaven whispers, step forward. The exam has been passed by you. The test of faith and integrity when no one was watching. If this message resonates in your soul, it's because heaven is confirming what your spirit already knows. You've crossed over. The old chapter has closed. The King is pleased. Before you scroll away, take a moment to honor what just happened in the unseen realm. Type 777 in the comments as your seal of completion, your prophetic act of agreement that this season of testing has ended. If these words found you at the right time, share them so another weary warrior might realize their test is also about to turn. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you won't miss what heaven is about to unfold next. The silence was never abandonment. It was admiration. The waiting was never punishment. It was preparation. You passed the test, and heaven is still talking about the beauty of your heart. And now new doors await, crafted for the version of you that endured the fire. Step boldly. Heaven walks beside every move you make. Your story becomes someone else's survival guide. Share it, live it, breathe it, Because what once broke you now builds the faith of others. You remember that season, don't you? The one where nothing moved. The air felt thick, the days long, and silence sat heavy like a weight on your chest. It was the season of hiddenness when even your prayers seemed to echo back unanswered. You asked, God, where are you? Yet in that darkness, something sacred was taking shape. You didn't realize it then, but heaven was working behind the curtain of delay. According to what is revealed in the book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 3, I will give you treasures hidden in the darkness, secret riches. I do this so you may know that I am the Lord who calls you by name. There it is, the secret most never understand. The treasures of God are rarely found in sunlight. They are buried deep in the soil of sorrow, wrapped in seasons that feel like endings. When you were surrounded by uncertainty, God was not distant. He was digging. He hid you, not to deny you, but to refine you. The hidden place is not a punishment. It's a vault of preparation. Imagine the way a diamond is formed under pressure in silence. Far beneath the surface where no light can reach, carbon becomes beauty. That's what God was doing in you. The silence you despised was his tool of transformation. Every unanswered question was carving character. Every delay was polishing destiny. During that hidden season, you were stripped of everything that made you feel seen. Friends drifted away. Opportunities froze. Familiar voices went quiet. You wondered if you had done something wrong. But heaven wasn't angry. Heaven was intentional. God was teaching you to hear his whisper above the applause of people. He wanted you to know his presence, even when there was no reward attached. There was a woman once, a quiet servant named Rhea. For years, she worked in the back room of a ministry. No one noticed. She cleaned, prepared, prayed, but never stood on a stage. One day, the leader fell ill before an important event. No one else knew how to take his place except Rhea. She stepped forward, steady and ready. The words that flowed from her carried power because they had been forged in private prayer. What looked like obscurity had been her training ground. The darkness hid her, but it also built her. You have lived a version of Rhea's story. You thought nothing was happening, but something was the very things you thought were holding you back, were shaping you into a vessel strong enough to hold what God is sending. You needed that stillness, that stripping, that waiting to know that what's coming isn't by accident. It's by calling. Sometimes the silence of heaven is not absence, it's alignment. God doesn't speak when he's building the foundation. He lets you feel the weight of waiting so that when the door opens, you'll carry gratitude, not pride. You were never abandoned in that darkness. The voice of the Lord was closer than your breath, even when your feelings couldn't detect it. It wasn't punishment. It was intimacy. God hides his most precious ones before he reveals them. The hidden season is where kings are formed and prophets are strengthened. It's where faith becomes muscle and patience becomes armor. Think of the seed again, buried, silent, unseen. If it could speak, it might call the soil suffocating. Yet in that burial, roots are being built strong enough to bear fruit. You were planted, not buried. You were covered, not forgotten. God was nurturing your unseen growth. You may not have realized it, but in that hiddenness, your heart learned the rhythm of heaven. You learned to move by faith, not visibility. You learned that obscurity is not rejection, it's incubation. Now you can look back with different eyes. The silence that once hurt you has become the space that defined you. You have learned what few ever do, that God hides his richest treasures in the darkest places. And you chosen one have held fast long enough to find them. When the world sees your light, now they will call it sudden. But you will know better. You will remember the years of silence, the nights of questions, the weight of hiddenness. You will know that glory didn't arrive overnight. It grew in the dark. So walk softly with quiet confidence. You no longer need to demand visibility. For heaven already knows your name, the treasures you gained in that secret place. Wisdom, humility, endurance are worth more than any applause could ever give. You are emerging from the shadows, carrying light that only the darkness could teach you to hold. There are tests no one sees. Quiet battles fought in hallways of thought, in late-night wrestlings when no audience watches. You've lived through them. You've smiled while bleeding inside, choosing faith when fear would have been easier. Heaven saw every silent victory. These were not moments of weakness. They were moments of revelation. You were being measured in secret, not for performance, but for purity. In those unseen struggles when your prayers returned empty and the promises seemed delayed, you thought you were losing ground. But the opposite was true. You were being refined for greater ground. Every disappointment became a lesson. Every rejection became a redirection. Each heartbreak tore away what could not go with you into your next season. The world looks at success in numbers. Heaven looks at faith in the unseen. That's why some of your biggest breakthroughs came disguised as breakdowns. The Lord used even the silence to train your hearing. You learned to discern His voice not by thunder, but by whisper, according to the writings in the book of Psalms, chapter 66, verse 10. For you, O God, tested us. You refined us as silver is refined. You didn't just survive the refining. You shone through it. Every hidden yes you gave to God in the dark became a spark in the spirit realm. You've carried fire from that furnace, the kind that cannot be taught or imitated. When others gave up, you dug deeper. When others cursed the storm, you learned to worship in the rain. Let me tell you about Caleb, a quiet dreamer who felt forgotten. He served faithfully for years behind someone else's spotlight. Doors closed. Promotions skipped him. He thought maybe God had moved on. But one night in prayer, he heard a whisper. You are not being punished. You are being proven. He stayed the course. When his time finally came, his character carried more weight than any title could have given him. The test had already made him ready. That's what heaven was doing in you, training your heart for influence. God was shaping you in private, so you could stand in public without collapsing. The secret trials were divine rehearsals for what's ahead. You were never invisible to heaven. Every time you chose peace over pride, patience over panic, surrender over striving, God took note. Think of a potter at the wheel. He shapes the clay with pressure, not to destroy it, but to give it form. The spinning doesn't mean chaos. It means creation. When your life felt like it was spinning out of control, the potter's hands never left you. The pressure you felt was proof of his care. He was forming something eternal now that the shaping is almost complete. You can feel the difference. You react slower, love deeper, forgive faster. These are not coincidences. They're signs of maturity. The test worked. Heaven is impressed not because you never failed, but because you kept returning, kept trusting, kept standing. There were moments when you thought your story had ended, but the author was only writing a new chapter. The ink was divine delay. He paused to make sure your heart could hold the glory. He was preparing to release. The greatest miracles often begin in silence. That's where God proves the genuine from the temporary, and you chosen one have proven yourself genuine. If this message resonates deeply within you, write in the comments, I'm still standing. I'll say it as a testimony not of perfection, but of perseverance, because every scar, every silent prayer, every lonely night is proof that even when life tried to crush you, your faith stood firm. Those 3 words are not casual. They are your victory cry, your announcement to heaven and to hell alike that you endured. And you're still here by grace. You were tested, refined, and chosen. And now the glow of that unseen victory lights your path ahead. And when you write, I'm still standing, you're not typing mere words. You're declaring survival. You're marking the moment when pain failed to define you and faith became your foundation. Those words remind heaven that you didn't fold when it was hardest. They tell the invisible world that your roots held firm even when the storm tried to break you. They echo to others still in their valley, showing that endurance is possible, that hope outlasts suffering, that faith can breathe even under pressure. So when you type, I'm still standing, you're not only speaking for yourself, you're speaking for every soul who's ever wondered if they could make it too. You're the living proof that they can. The test was never meant to expose your failure. It was meant to reveal your foundation. Everything you faced was a divine diagnosis of what could endure and what could not. God never wastes difficulty. He designs it. Every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer, every lonely road had a hidden assignment. It was shaping the structure of your soul. You may not have understood it then, but those dark seasons were construction sites. The noise, the mess, the waiting. None of it was random. God was laying deep spiritual foundations where no one else could see. He was teaching you to stand when the applause stopped, to believe when the signs were absent, to love when it cost you peace. The process of becoming isn't glamorous. It's gritty. It's made of long nights and quiet tears. But every tear became mortar in the wall of your faith. And while others saw your silence as weakness, heaven saw it as strength. You weren't stuck. You were settling into the roots of endurance. As written in the book of Hosea, chapter 2, verse 15, I will make the valley of Achor a door of hope. There she will sing as in the days of her youth. That's what your valley was, the valley of Achor, the place of trouble that God turned into a doorway of hope. Every loss became an entry point to grace. Every delay created space for deeper dependence. You thought the silence meant God had stepped back, but he was simply clearing the noise around you so you could finally hear his heartbeat. You see, God doesn't only test to prove you. He tests to trust you. The difference is profound. Proving reveals who you are to yourself. Trusting reveals who you are to him. Once your heart proved faithful in hiddenness, heaven began to trust you with greater weight. You can't carry new glory on an untested heart. That's why he allowed pressure to prepare you for promotion without pride. Think of Joseph in the prison, David in the fields, Esther in waiting, all hidden before they were honored. You've walked that same corridor of obscurity. And like them, you've discovered that the waiting is not wasted time. It's sacred time. The waiting refines his motives. It burns away ambition and replaces it with alignment. There was a time when you asked, why me? But now after the fire, you whisper, thank you, Lord, for choosing me for this refining. The furnace was not a rejection, as you now know. Selection was the process. Those are not refined by God. He intends to throw away. Those he plans to employ, he refines. You may not have realized it, but every hardship honed your spiritual sensibilities. You're starting to pick up on details. Others fail to notice quiet affirmations, subtle reminders, and little mercies. The result of testing is that awareness. Clarity is what's left after everything is removed. There's a picture that perfectly captures you. A lighthouse. Even when the waves smash and the winds scream during a storm, the light never goes out. The storm doesn't spare the lighthouse. It is in it. That's who you are now. A constant light that helps others navigate their mess. Your constancy in the dark served as a safety guide for someone else. You maintained your kindness despite everything. The true miracle is that, when faced with suffering, many people grow tough. You remain soft, however. You're still in love. You continue to provide forgiveness. You have hope. Tenderness does not equate to weakness. It's sacredness. It indicates that you were not heartbroken by the exam. It was cleansed. There are still days when you question if the testing season was really over. Asking that is normal. In actuality, however, examinations never really finish. They change with time. There are further levels of proof for every degree of calling. Now, the difference is that you approach them in a different way. You remain calm. You don't beg to get out. You know that testing is proof of intent. So you use your old expertise to navigate fresh storms. You now know how to breathe in submission, breathe out serenity, and breathe in the rhythm of trust. Now you know how to discover God in the quiet, how to identify his fingerprints on what seemed like a chaotic scene. Each hardship served as a teacher. Every quiet is a lecture. Every tear is a textbook. You examine them rather than just surviving them. You now have the endurance curriculum etched into your soul. Heaven sees your conflicts, even if others may not see them when they look at you. Heaven is aware that each scar is a testament to a person's unwavering faith. You are now a living example of how God's process of refinement is effective. So tonight, take solace in that fact. The test has been successful. You've changed since it started. We are incomparably more dazzling, and you are steadier. Your adoration is now growing in the garden that was once the valley that shattered you. You accomplished more than just pass the exam. You become the proof that beauty is produced by God's refining fire. A change is happening right now, like the morning breaking over the horizon after a long night. You can sense it being calm yet assured. You have traversed the secret areas, took the exams that very few people ever saw. Heaven is now starting to reveal what it has silently constructed. You have a stronger heart. Your mood has stabilized. Your steps are more confident. In bits and pieces, everything that previously baffled you now makes sense. The prudence of waiting is evident to you. The reason for the suffering. There seemed to be a pause in the heavenly rhythm. You were not consumed by the flames you encountered. You were transformed into something radiant by it. In the book of Psalms, we hear the echo of truth. Verse 5 of chapter 30. While the night may be spent in tears, the morning brings happiness. It's your morning right here, and something lovely occurs when the light shines through. You begin to realize that your path was about more than simply yourself. Someone else finds refuge in the faith that blossomed throughout your hardship. Your tale, your words, and your perseverance are now crucial, opening the hearts of others to hope. People have been silently observing you, even if you were unaware of it. Some have found bravery in your tenacity, while others have found serenity in your calm. You are now a live example of how faith, love, and grace can still heal and restore wholeness to those who are damaged. Your voice is important because of this. Your tale isn't intended to be heard once and then forgotten. The purpose of the ripple is to extend its reach, touching those who are still in the same place as you. Please take a moment to quietly like and share this message if it has touched your heart. Imagine it like lighting a second candle in the dark. Tonight, the only light someone sees could be the torch you pass on. To continue to be a part of this expanding circle of light, subscribe if you haven't already. Every message serves as an additional source of inspiration. They come together to create a constellation of optimism that transcends nations and emotions. However, there's more to it than that. An opportunity to collaborate with the message in a concrete manner. Consider this: a brook that flows across a parched valley. It remains alive with each drop added. It would be like pouring water into that stream if you were willing to support this flow with prayer, words of encouragement, or even a little payment. It's overflow, not duty. You are contributing to the continuation of the faith current, reaching locations we may not be able to visit on our own. No matter how little, a gift is like a pebble dropped into eternity. The waves extend beyond what is visible to the naked eye. There is no need for it. It's a gesture that conveys the message: I believe in this light. Let it keep burning. Just an invitation, no demands. You got it for free. You may also give freely if your heart is guided. Because of your kindness, this light continues to shine and reach those who may not otherwise enter a church. Yet still want for a divine touch. While some individuals contribute financially, others share, and still others give via prayer. Giving in whatever way you see fit keeps the lighthouse shining for those who are still looking for shore. Breathe for a moment. Consider how much has changed and how far you've come. Every statement made here and every reality that affected you is a part of a greater narrative. You now have the opportunity to influence the course of that tale. You have undergone renewal, restoration, and refinement. Struggling isn't the next step. Sharing is the key. Allow what helped you to help someone else. If this message has been a blessing to you, then let it keep flowing like a river that always gives without asking. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or give as you like. Just taking part in something holy without any expectations or pressure. Because a flame is necessary for every light. And sometimes that one spark of yours turns into the fire that warms 1,000 souls. And be silent while you donate. Like rain, which feeds silently. In someone else's desert, what secretly pours from your heart produces harvest. Sharing isn't about disseminating content. It has to do with sowing seeds. Even while each portion may fall on unobservable soil, it may nonetheless flourish in ways that are significant to heaven. Consider subscribing to be like attaching to a rhythm of light. A subtle reminder that you are part of an ever-brightening circle of faith. And give with enthusiasm the next time you contribute. Because donating is an act of devotion. It's thankfulness on steroids. It's how you communicate with heaven. The light that discovered me won't go away. Well, the tale goes on. Every spark becomes someone's daybreak again as your light joins countless others to make a sky of kindness. The acknowledgement of God has a hallowed quality. The moment when your name is finally called forth by heaven after much waiting. Despite being invisible and unnoticed, you have been walking dutifully and consistently. A holy change has now begun. Soon, what was rumored in secret will be verified in public. The same God who put your heart to the test is now showing off how happy he is with it. Each obedience-filled stride you made produced a seed of memory. Even if you're unaware of it, angels have been gathering such moments. Your silent offerings, your reserved speech, your covert devotion. There was no waste. All of them were recorded by heaven's record keeper using permanent ink. According to what is said in Nahum's book, chapter 1, verse 7, "The Lord is excellent. He is a rock when things become tough. He is aware of those who have faith in him." No, he is familiar with you. Everything is altered by that straightforward fact. Every struggle has purpose when God knows you. Not only your name, but also your character, your wounds, and your intentions. You never had to convince anybody of your worth. Heaven already knew who you were. And to be marked for favor is to be recognized by God. You were never invisible, even if you may have felt ignored. Heaven's timing is never late, although it sometimes moves more slowly than people anticipate. Heaven was making arrangements while you waited. Heaven was situating itself while you prayed. The quiet was only a tactic. Consider this: a stone chiseling by a sculptor. Although each stroke seems fierce, form is revealed. Your refinement felt like that. Every setback and delay served as a heavenly chisel that formed purpose under duress. What some saw as shattering, being is what God named. The revelation is about to happen. After being locked for years, doors start to unlock. There are opportunities. They were drawn to your character, not because you pursued them. What is taking place is realization, not a coincidence. Heaven is paying respect to what it formerly concealed. The tale of Leora, a lady who served for years in silent faith, comes to mind. She wasn't the stage leader. Garrett has no title. However, her house turned into a haven for other people. When others forgot how to pray, she did it. When she had little, she gave. A stranger knocked on her home one day, a family for whom she has previously prayed. They came to express gratitude, not to inquire. She recognized that God had been watching all along when they informed her. Your prayers saved us. That same season of recognition is upon you. It's not the harvest of acclaim. It is being provided as confirmation. Your perseverance was not in vain, as the same God who saw your waiting now reminds you. The Spirit is stirring, a subtle but unmistakable indication that heaven has turned its focus to you. You can notice a shift in the mood. The weight of prayers has diminished. Once infinite burdens are now starting to lessen. That isn't creative. The timing is wonderful. You have experienced the valley. You have taken on the burden of waiting. The scent of submission is now ascending to the crown. Heaven is working for you. But take a time to stop here. Your adventure does not stop here. From testing to believing is a shift. God relieves accountability when he begins to reward loyalty. It's no longer about proving yourself in the new season. It's about being a humble steward of the bounty. Divine alignment, individuals put in your way, resources unlocked, and ideas revitalized will all become apparent to you. Take your time. Allow recognition to occur organically. Your next chapter will naturally unfold toward favor, just as flowers turn toward the sun. Now is the moment to take a deep breath and express gratitude. Chosen one, you survived the trial without suffering any injuries. That's triumph enough. Under fire, many people lose faith, yet you maintained yours. Your perseverance, not your performance, is what impresses heaven. We don't forget you. You are in the driver's seat. You're not behind schedule. You're being brought into your purpose. And the locations where you used to weep will soon be transformed into sanctuaries of gratitude. Write in the comments section 444 if these words speak to you. In the language of religion, That number stands for divine alignment, the moment when the order of heaven and your preparedness on earth meet. It is a foreboding representation of order after disorder, of clarity after ambiguity. You're not chasing numbers or luck when you write 444. You're expressing yourself. I now walk in accordance with God's plan. It's your method of stating that even when I can't see the whole picture, I trust the timing. So, think of it as a silent prayer in action. 3 numbers that speak to a greater reality. From testing to timing, you've gone from waiting to walking. Allow it to serve as your virtual amen, a soft method of calling out to heaven. I agree. Well, you survived the fire without smelling the smoke. You are being brought forward by the same God who kept you concealed. For satisfaction, not for glory. Not from people, but from heaven itself, there is recognition. Since heaven is no longer only observing, walk gently and with thankfulness. It's reacting, remembering when people left you carries a precious honesty. You remember their voices, their looks, and the times you reached out and all you got was nothing. You developed a strength from those seasons that came from suffering rather than pride. At the time, you were unaware of it. However, what seemed to be rejection turned out to be redirection. Heaven will sometimes cleanse your circle before crowning your calling. It is not intended for everyone who begins with you to end with you. And even though it was painful and caused you to doubt your value, that separation was really kindness masquerading as loss. God never takes away without a reason. He eliminates just that which is incapable of bearing the following benefit. In Proverbs, we find these lines stated in verse 21 of chapter 19. There are a lot of other ideas in a person's heart, but the Lord's plan wins out. You made arrangements for your companion. You imagined certain individuals cheering you on when you achieved your goals and supporting you throughout your setbacks. However, many vanished as the refining season arrived. You felt left behind. You attempted to interpret it. What went wrong? But you weren't being punished by God. He was shielding you from unwarranted allegiance. Some are more concerned with your comfort than your purpose. Heaven wasn't being unkind when the trimming started. Kindness was being shown. The removal of attachments that sapped your power was a holy surgery, much as when a gardener trims branches that are no longer producing fruit. They were trimming you to make you stronger. The ghosts of treachery may still haunt you. The family member who misinterpreted your feelings, the buddy who misrepresented your remarks. Your partner was unable to manage your process. Every scar has turned into a tale of elegance, even if every wound left its imprint. Those who departed created space for those who were more compatible. You developed your independence, and in the process, you found that you were never really alone. Before it soars, think about an eagle once again. Feathers that are no longer able to carry altitude are shed. That shedding seems to be lonely and unpleasant, yet it's essential for a new flight. God stripped you of what was heavy so you may climb higher during your own molting season. I recall Daria, a young lady, having the same pain. She threw herself into friendships that waned as her popularity increased. She was no longer prayed for by the same folks. Why do they keep leaving? She questioned God. And the response was simple but deep. Because it was your cage, not your wings, that they were clutching. After that day, she began to embrace purpose instead than lamenting absence. You've realized the same thing. You now comprehend what remained: peace, wisdom, faith, and the unwavering presence of God. So you no longer have to beg for what's left. You learned discernment from your experience of abandonment. You now understand how to identify hearts that are aligned rather than connected, and how to feel real loyalty. In the next seasons, such knowledge will keep you safe. It's important to understand that not all silences indicate rejection. God sometimes mutes certain voices so that you may easily hear himself. You may have taken their comfort for his advice if everyone had remained. It was not punishment to be alone. It was getting ready. You were learning to depend on heaven rather than praise. You are now filled with thankfulness instead of resentment when you reflect on their exits. It now seems like a gift instead than betrayal. Authenticity was made possible by each loss. Each farewell made room for divine alignment. And today, the people that are left are different. They convey purpose rather than pretense, tranquility rather than pressure. They recognize your vocation without interfering with it. Heaven approves of these kinds of connections. Few but accurate, deep yet quiet. You have a new level of stability. Once in need of confirmation, the person now proceeds with confidence. The person who used to dread isolation now finds power in it. The once empty room now seems hallowed and alive with presence. You learn to construct altars rather than seek for audiences in the woods. You discovered how to stand without assistance, love without compensation, and pray without approval. You encountered the everlasting God in that solitude. Therefore, avoid cursing the memories of those who left. God bless it, because each departure brought you one step closer to your fate. Every farewell turned into advice. You've been prepped, cleansed, and trimmed. You now know that losing people does not equate to losing your mission. Sometimes it means discovering it at last. You walk lighter now that you can see better and hear fewer voices. Here, the air is different, freer, purer, and thinner. Now you're flying. It was because you let go, not because you clung. The fire burns hotter in certain seasons, when there are more questions than answers and the heat is intolerable. You've experienced the refiner's fire one of those seasons. It was a living reality rather than only a beautiful word. The familiar started to disappear. What had reassured you was no longer effective. It seemed as if God had increased the level of difficulty just when you were at your breaking point. The fire, however, never arrives to destroy. It becomes distinct. Chapter 13, verse 9 of the book of Zechariah has this information. I'll test them like gold, purify them like silver, and put them through the fire. My name will be called, and I will respond. Then the fire arrived, exposing the truth. In tranquil waters, anybody may worship. However, when you are forced to defy reason, the storm reveals the full depth of your faith. When your heart felt like it was about to burst, you continued to speak his name even when nothing made sense. Heaven was not amenable to that whisper. Holy defiance was what it was. Refusing to die was the sound of faith. There is no solace in the refiner's fire. It is a location where things change. Only essence remains once illusion is removed. Faith isn't always loud, you learned. Sometimes, through tears, the answer is a silent yes. When everything within begs to halt, take a steady step forward. Imagine a furnace filled with gold. When it is burning, it does not shine. It seems rough, molten, and shapeless. However, the refiner keeps a close eye on everything. He stays in the heat all the time. He takes it out as soon as the metal is flawless. God took care of you in that way. He observed. He waited. He improved. Every letdown was a level of fire. The fever rose with each unanswered prayer, and each surrender turned into a cleansing. You believed that you would be consumed by the flames. However, it demonstrated your tenacity. You discovered that being comfortable does not equate to being selected. It entails being ready. Once a guy by the name of Jonah opposed his method. When he attempted to flee his calling, the storm pursued him. The flames you encountered served as protection rather than punishment. It prevented you from getting off course. You learned to give up control of the situation when it became uncontrollable. Your breakthrough was that surrender. It prevented you from getting off course. You learned to give up control of the situation when it became uncontrollable. Your breakthrough was that surrender. You started to realize that you were being formed by the same fires that scared you. They destroyed pride, anxiety, uncertainty, and public approbation. Your intentions were cleansed by the fire until your heart completely matched God's. Authenticity and unadulterated faith were what were left after the fire. You now have more worth. Much like pure gold, you glow, but in a different way. It's perseverance, not comfort, that gives you your shine. It's the soft light of someone who has endured the heat and discovered holiness as a result. Occasionally, the fire separates before it becomes visible. You saw how some individuals disappeared when the temperature climbed. Not everyone is able to support you while you purify. Despite their terrible nature, God did not exterminate them. They couldn't take your refining season, so he took them out. They were exposed by what was scorching you. You learned stillness from the refining fire as well. When you felt the need to defend or explain everything, You discovered how to relax in God's wisdom. It was a hallowed silence. It demonstrated trust that went beyond words. You didn't have to demonstrate your innocence anymore. You let the results of your perseverance to do the talking. Silently, you found in the fire miracle. It was a miracle that you were not consumed by the flames, not that they vanished. You could have been toughened by the heat you walked through. Instead, it made your spirit softer, and you were stronger, lighter, and more modest when the fire eventually went out. You had a new authority in your words, a calmness in your heart, and depth in your gaze. Not as the same person, but as a vessel of unwavering faith. You had touched the furnace and come out alive. Now look back. Do you see it? The areas you believed to be ends turned into beginnings. The ashes were used as proof. The suffering turned into prophecy. You are now a live example of how God changes everything that the fire touches. The fire at the refinery has done its job. You've survived it, so you don't dread it anymore. Unseen yet indisputable, you carry its teachings with you like invisible armor. You'll remember that the flames don't come to destroy the chosen when life becomes heated again. They end up defining them. You are light because you have been through the fire. Heaven smiled at your sacrifice at a precious and invisible moment. It was not a day of triumph or festivity. The invisible world was rocked by your silent statement. Even if nothing changes, I will still believe. That was when God grinned. The noisy are not necessarily praised in heaven. It pays respect to the devoted. You remained when life's cacophony subsided and the solutions failed to appear. God is more moved by that type of perseverance than by any kind of spectacular performance. Be cheerful in hope, patient in suffering, and obedient in prayer, according to the teachings in Romans 12 verses 12 to 13. When it hurt, you did all three. When it didn't make sense, you endured. When words failed, I prayed. Now, that loyalty has turned into assent. It ascends from the altar of your heart like incense. Invisible but indisputable. Those who don't give up their faith have a sacred quality. Heaven refers to quiet as strength, whereas the earth views it as weakness.